7 Controversial Facts About Gravity. We all studied the law of universal gravitation in school. But what do we actually know about gravity beyond the information instilled in our minds by schoolteachers? Let's refresh our knowledge. The law of universal gravitation. Everyone knows the famous tale of the apple that fell on Newton's head. However, the fact is that Newton did not discover the law of universal gravitation, as this law is simply absent from his book Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy. In this work, there is neither a formula nor a formulation, which anyone can verify for themselves. Moreover, the first mention of the gravitational constant appears only in the 19th century. Accordingly, the formula could not have appeared earlier. Incidentally, the coefficient g, which reduces calculation results by 600 billion times, has no physical meaning and was introduced to conceal contradictions. Among all known fundamental constants, the numerical value of the gravitational constant is determined with the least accuracy, although the importance of this quantity is hard to overestimate. All attempts to clarify the exact value of this constant have been unsuccessful, and all measurements have remained within a too wide range of possible values. The fact that the accuracy of the numerical value of the gravitational constant still does not exceed January 5000 was described by a Nature journal editor as a stain of shame on the face of physics. In the early 1980s, Frank Stacey and his colleagues measured this constant in deep mines and boreholes in Australia, and the value they obtained was approximately 1% higher than the official value currently accepted. Laboratory confirmation. It is believed that Cavendish was the first to demonstrate gravitational attraction between laboratory masses using torsion balances, a horizontal beam with weights at the end suspended on a thin wire. The beam could rotate on the thin wire. According to the official version, Cavendish brought a weight close to a pair of 158 kg masses on opposite sides, and the beam rotated by a small angle. However, the methodology of the experiment was incorrect, and the results were falsified, as convincingly demonstrated by physicist Andrei Albertovich Grishov. Cavendish repeatedly modified and adjusted the setup so that the results would match Newton's stated average density of the Earth. The methodology of the experiment involved moving the masses several times, and the cause of the beam's rotation was microvibrations from the movement of the masses, which were transmitted to the suspension. This is confirmed by the fact that such a simple setup, for educational purposes, should be present, if not in every school, then at least in the physics departments of universities, to practically demonstrate to students the result of the law of universal gravitation. However, Cavendish's setup is not used in educational programs, and schoolchildren and students take it on faith that two masses attract each other. Lunar anomalies. If we substitute reference data for Earth, the Moon, and the Sun into the formula of the law of universal gravitation, then at the moment when the Moon passes between the Earth and the Sun, e.g., during a solar eclipse, the gravitational force between the Sun and the Moon is more than twice as strong as between the Earth and the Moon. According to the formula, the Moon should have left Earth's orbit and started orbiting the Sun. Furthermore, the Moon does not exhibit its attractive properties towards the Earth. The Earth-Moon pair does not move around a common center of mass, as would be expected by the law of universal gravitation, and Earth's elliptical orbit, contrary to this law, does not become zigzag-shaped. Moreover, the parameters of the Moon's orbit do not remain constant. The orbit, in scientific terminology, evolves, and it does so contrary to the law of universal gravitation. How can this be, you might ask? Even schoolchildren know about ocean tides on Earth caused by the attraction of water to the Sun and the Moon. According to the theory, the Moon forms a tidal ellipsoid in the ocean with two tidal bulges, which, due to daily rotation, move across Earth's surface. However, practice shows the absurdity of these theories. According to them, a tidal bulge 1 meter high should, over 6 hours, move through the Drake Passage from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic. Since water is incompressible, the mass of water would raise the level by about 10 meters, which does not happen in practice. In practice, tidal phenomena occur autonomously in areas 1,000 to 2,000 kilometers wide. Even Laplace was puzzled by the paradox, why in French seaports high tide occurs sequentially, although, according to the concept of the tidal ellipsoid, it should occur simultaneously there. Measuring gravity. The principle of measuring gravity is simple. Gravimeters measure vertical components, and plumb lines show deviations from weight, indicating horizontal components. The first attempt to test the theory of mass gravitation was undertaken by the British in the mid-18th century on the shores of the Indian Ocean, where on one side lies the world's highest mountain range, the Himalayas, and on the other, a basin filled with much less massive water. But alas, the plumb line does not deflect toward the Himalayas. Moreover, highly sensitive instruments, gravimeters, do not detect differences in the weight of a test body at the same height above massive mountains and less dense seas of kilometer depth. To save the established theory, scientists devised a support for it. Supposedly, under the seas lie denser rocks, and under the mountains, looser ones, with densities precisely adjusted to fit the required value. It was also experimentally established that gravimeters in deep mines show that the force of gravity does not decrease with depth, it continues to increase, depending only on the square of the distance to Earth's center. There are natural gravity anomalies that also lack any clear explanation from official science. Here are a few examples.
Отойдите. Сними так, чтобы было видно, что она стоит на уклоне. Теперь надо ловить.
Absence of gravity in small celestial bodies. The independence of gravity from mass and substance is confirmed by the fact that, with rare exceptions, small bodies in the solar system completely lack gravitational attraction. Except for the Moon and Titan, more than 6 planetary satellites show no signs of their own gravity. This has been proven by both indirect and direct measurements. For example, since 2004, the Cassini probe has occasionally flown near Saturn's satellites. However, no change in the probe's speed was recorded. Using the same Cassini, a geyser was discovered on Enceladus, Saturn's sixth-largest satellite. What physical processes must occur on a cosmic chunk of ice for jets of steam to escape into space? For the same reason, Titan, Saturn's largest satellite, has a gas tail as a result of atmospheric escape. No predicted satellite systems have been found around asteroids, despite their vast numbers. In all reports of double or paired asteroids allegedly orbiting a common center of mass, there was no evidence of such rotation. Companions happened to be nearby, moving in quasi-synchronous orbits around the Sun. Attempts to place artificial satellites into asteroid orbits ended in failure. Examples include the Near-Shoemaker probe, which was directed toward asteroid Eros, and the Hayabusa probe, which the Japanese sent to asteroid Itokawa. Alternative research. There is a large number of alternative studies with impressive results in the field of gravity that fundamentally contradict the theoretical calculations of official science. Few people know that Viktor Stepanovich Grebennikov, a Siberian entomologist who studied the cavity structure effect in insects, described the phenomenon of antigravity in insects in his book My World. Scientists have long known that massive insects, such as the May beetle, fly more in defiance of gravity laws than because of them. Moreover, based on his research, Grebennikov created an anti-gravity platform. Viktor Stepanovich died under rather strange circumstances, and his developments were partially lost. However, some parts of the anti-gravity platform prototype have been preserved. They can be seen in the Grebennikov Museum in Novosibirsk. Another practical application of anti-gravity can be observed in Homestead, Florida, where a strange structure made of coral monolithic blocks, popularly known as the Coral Castle, is located. It was built by a Latvian immigrant, Edward Leedskalnin, in the first half of the 20th century. This man, of slender build, had no tools, no vehicle, and no equipment. He didn't even use electricity, also due to its absence. Nevertheless, he somehow went to the ocean, where he extracted multi-ton stone blocks and somehow delivered them to his site, laying them out with perfect precision. After Leedskalnin's death, scientists began to study his creation thoroughly. For an experiment, a powerful bulldozer was brought in to attempt to move one of the 30-ton blocks of the coral castle. The bulldozer roared and slipped but failed to move the huge stone. Inside the castle, a strange device was found, which scientists called a direct current generator. It was a massive structure with numerous metal parts. On the outside of the device, 240 permanent strip magnets were installed. But how exactly Edward Leedskalnin moved multi-ton blocks remains a mystery. Some researchers analyze the vibrational nature of antigravity. This effect is clearly demonstrated in a modern experiment where droplets hang in the air due to acoustic levitation. Here we see how, using sound of a certain frequency, it is possible to confidently hold liquid droplets in the air. And here's an effect that, at first glance, is easily explained by the principles of a gyroscope. However, even such a simple experiment largely contradicts gravity in its modern understanding. Research by John Searle is known, in whose hands unusual generators came to life, rotated, and generated energy. Discs with diameters from half a meter to 10 meters rose into the air and made controlled flights from London to Cornwall and back. Professor Searle's experiments were later repeated in Russia, the United States, and Taiwan. In Russia, for example, in 1999, a patent application was filed for a device for producing mechanical energy by Vladimir Vitalievich Roshchin and Sergei Mikhailovich Godin. They essentially recreated the Searle effect generator and conducted a series of experiments with it. The result was the conclusion that it is possible to generate 7 kilowatts of electricity without input and that the rotating generator lost up to 40% of its weight. The equipment of Searle's first laboratory was removed to an unknown location while he was in prison. The Roshchin-Godin installation simply disappeared. All publications, except for the patent application, vanished. Gravity and the theory of relativity. According to modern understanding, the speed of light is finite. As a result, we see distant objects not where they are located now, but where the light we are seeing originated from. But at what speed does gravity propagate? By analyzing data accumulated even in his time, Laplace established that gravity propagates faster than light, by at least 7 orders of magnitude. Modern measurements of pulsar signal reception have pushed the speed of gravity even further, at least 10 orders of magnitude faster than the speed of light. Thus, experimental studies contradict the general theory of relativity, which official science still relies on, despite its complete insolvency. In reality, orthodox science admitted its own helplessness when it introduced the concept of so-called dark matter. It was then discovered that spiral galaxies rotate as a whole, which contradicts Kepler's law. Contrary to the law of universal gravitation, stars at the periphery rotate too fast and should have scattered due to centrifugal forces. Meanwhile, all attempts to find particles of dark matter using the most sensitive instruments have led nowhere. Yet, as early as the beginning of the last century, scientists knew that the space around us is not empty, it is completely filled with many different types of matter or primary matter, in the terminology of the heterogeneous universe concept. At that time, this primary matter was called ether, and convincing evidence of its existence was obtained. For example, the well-known experiments of Dayton Miller, described in the article, The Theory of the Universe and Objective Reality. However, at a certain point, global scientific thought was deliberately misled, and that is why, to this day, there is no clear scientific explanation for the nature of gravity. In the near future, our channel will release a detailed piece on this topic, so we recommend turning on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming videos.